I personally believe that this stock could hit $100. Please stick around to find out why. Right, so if you saw our video last night on this stock, which is Apxt stock, you will know that I gave a huge prediction in that thumbnail of around $100, and in that episode I talked about if the bullish run can continue for this company. So first thing to note is, of course, thank you for the massive amount of support on that video. It's at like 5.2k, which is amazing. I think that's like the most viewed video that we have ever had on the channel, so thank you for that. Please keep the support up by subscribing. Please take us on our journey to 100,000. Obviously we have the majority of the way to go now, so we're just taking a small step up to 10,000. So if you could just, help us on that first step, then we are 1/10 of the way to 100,000. Of course, do join us on our Discord, and I would see you over there as well. But yeah, tonight we're going to be having another look, and I'm going to be giving a serious price prediction and the pattern which I think we will follow on that price prediction. So we're going to start off by looking at the stock over the past month or so to gauge and, understand why I am making these, statements which I am making. Of course, first thing to note is I am not a financial advisor, but my opinions are that yes, we have seen this stock rally up quite high. We're seeing about a 50% gain on the 1 month period. Obviously, most of that is coming from the past week or so. So obviously that is a huge gain. And that is, of course, because this company is merging with Avepoint, and Avepoint, we all know, is that Microsoft 365 company, and they basically operate on one of the world's biggest, spreadsheet, if not business companies around the world. And yeah, it is safe to say this company is fairly well managed, Avepoint that is. And I think with this company, I'm just going to dive a bit more into that in a moment, but I think it's going to be a case of this stock is going to slowly climb, take a small fall off, and then also get back onto its growth pattern. I'll explain why in just a moment, but yes, I definitely do see this one being a big company. So of course, unfortunately, it's kind of impossible and irrelevant for me to give you any of the figures for revenue for this company yet, but once it does go public, I will be updating you for the Q4. Hopefully this merger does go through by Christmas, by the way, if not into the early part of next year. But yeah, we can see that most of this rally has happened in the last week. So going back, we're going to have a quick look on the 5-day chart. On the 5-day chart, we can see most of this came from the 25th of November onwards. So of course, we can see most of that growth is fairly recent. And on today, we look like we may have taken a small dip, and that is indeed the case. So we go down from about $17 all the way down to about $15.41. That is not necessarily a bad thing to see, because of course, when we see a big, huge growth like this, it's just expected that we are probably going to see a dip at some point. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean anything for the stock at all, but then I'm going to give my buy rating in just a moment. So yeah, as I foreshadowed, I did say that I can see the stock taking a huge rise and then a potential dip and then reaching its proper growth target, and I will explain more as we go on. So first reason which I think this is due to is simply due to the fact and basically the pattern that we see with SPAC merger patterns. So I think what we have seen with other companies, and there are quite a few notable companies which we have seen this with, I'm just going to give an example of Helion. So we saw Helion stock rise to about $60-$70 pre-merger. Once the merger went through, the catalyst, which was of course the one that sped up the reaction, and the reaction in this case was a stock price increasing. The thing which basically led the stock price up was over. So a lot of institutions and whatnot, they saw their profits, they saw 100, 200, 300% profits, and they just thought, we're holding this for a short amount of time, we looked out, and now we are going to sell. And honestly, fair play to them. But I think a lot of people did also get nervous when they saw this, decrease, because Helion was one of the big SPAC mergers back in the day. And when I say back in the day, I mean like 6 months ago, but still. Yeah, that was a relatively big merger, and I think a lot of people just bought in expecting huge growth non-stop all the way up, and unfortunately that is not the case with these SPACs most of the time. What happens is, like I said, once a merger is over, we see a short sell-off. But it is also important to note that does not mean anything for the long-term investor. For the short-term investor, that definitely means something, because of course every single penny does matter when you're doing a swing trade. But for a long-term prediction, on my personal predictions, I don't think a small dip in a few months is going to matter at all, because let's think about it as it is. A lot of people are going to be hyping up this stock for the short term for definite. Of course, a lot of people will be getting in for the long term, but I'll talk about that in a moment. So the reason why I think a lot of people are getting in for the short term is obviously we all know that SPAC mergers is a great opportunity to swing trade and often a great opportunity to make it to a few 100% here and there, which is amazing for the stock market. But for the long term, it's a completely different perspective which we need to look at. So yes, we've seen the price of 15.57 right now, and I still don't think that is too overpriced for the stock in the long term. But when we look at the long term, we don't want to be buying in at those extreme highs. I would still buy in at a dip right now. If I could, I would definitely like it to dip to about $14, and then I would personally look to buy in. But the case is, for the long term, a lot of the proper investors do get in once that hype gets out. So that is also a great time to buy if you are going to miss the opportunity, because of course you could be watching this video in 2 to 3 weeks when the stock price might be at $30, $40, $50. And I think in that case, I would personally leave it a few weeks or so, if not check the latest update video on the channel. But if I haven't made an update video by then, I'm sure I will have. I will have probably left it by then if we do see a huge increase and wait for that sell-off after the merger. So like I said, once the merger does go through, price drops a lot, and that is when I think the proper investors do get in. I think the main reason due to this is because, yes, we all know that mergers 99% of the time are successful because they do make sense. But, I think a lot of people are A, going to look up Avepoint stock and just invest because of that reason. B, they're going to be 100% certain that they are investing in Avepoint and not some other SPAC and whatnot. And I think that is the main two reasons for the stock price increasing after the merger does go through. So yes, I will see that dip off, but once that does happen, I will see a steady increase. So why do I see this steady increase going? Because I have mentioned it a few times. I see this potentially going to $100 within the next 2 years, and I think the reason is because once the stock does enter the market, regardless of how it goes public, whether it's a SPAC, an IPO, whatever, I think it will need to find a price where it is stable at. I think, no offense to Helion investors, of course, but with companies like Helion, the reason why the sell-off was extra big was because the company is not that well established, and the sector which it is in is a big growth sector for the future, but it's not right there right now. Whereas with this company, with Avepoint, Microsoft Office 365 is obviously well established, so the company's business model is a bit more established as well. So what that means is, of course, I think the stock will level out at a higher price. I can definitely see this one being a slow grower up to potentially $100, if not higher in the future, due to the fact that obviously the company is well managed, the company does have its finances in check as far as I am aware, and of course where it operates is of course just a hugely growing sector anyway, if not a well-established sector. So for a company like this, being as it is so established, like I said, it will have to find a level where it is comfortable at, and I can see this being on the higher side rather than the low side, but that is just my personal opinion. Of course, feel free to tell us your personal opinions over on Discord. I would love to see you there. Again, I would like to say a massive thank you for the 5,000 plus views on the last video, literally from last night. If you do enjoy these videos, I will keep making them on this stock, and of course, I will see you in the next one. Please do like and subscribe. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.